What would you do if your neighborhood association tried to crush you with impossible fines? This is the story of how one stubborn homeowner turned the tables on a greedy HOA, proving that sometimes revenge is best served with a flood. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more insane true-style stories like this one. I never imagined that moving into what looked like a dream neighborhood could turn into a nightmare that would cost me nearly everything I had and then hand me the opportunity for the most satisfying revenge I've ever experienced. But life has a way of throwing curveballs at you, and mine came in the form of an HOA. Yes, a homeowners association, the dreaded 3 letters that have ruined more lives than termites or hurricanes ever could. And it all started when I built a small, private dam at the edge of my property. A dam that wasn't meant to harm anyone, wasn't meant to obstruct anything important, but was purely functional because I had a little creek running across my land that would flood every spring and cause water damage to my shed and garden. So I invested my own time, sweat, and money into building a neat stone and cement dam reinforced with steel rods, something that any rational person would have called a smart improvement, not an eyesore. And for months nobody even noticed because it was tucked behind my trees and only visible if you went walking right up to my backyard. But the HOA president, a woman named Carol with the kind of personality you'd expect from a power-drunk hall monitor, somehow found out. And one fine morning I opened my mailbox to find a letter stamp with the HOA's seal accusing me of illegal water diversion and unapproved construction, along with a demand that I pay a fine of $50,000. Yes, $50,000, for daring to make improvements to my own property, which of course was ridiculous because the dam didn't divert water anywhere else. It simply held it back in a small pond on my land and prevented the very flooding that had been damaging my tools and yard for years. But the HOA didn't care, because Carol and her little committee thrived on control and intimidation. They wanted me to grovel, to beg for forgiveness, maybe even pay up just to avoid a legal battle. But I wasn't wired that way. I wasn't about to let a bunch of nosy neighbors bully me into submission, so I ignored the first letter, thinking they'd back off when they realized I wasn't some pushover, only to receive another letter, this one threatening legal action, and then came the harassment. Petty violations for my grass being an inch too high, for my trash cans being left out too long, even though they weren't, for parking my truck on the street overnight, which plenty of others did without consequence, and every time I tried to reason with them, to show them the dam wasn't hurting anyone, Carol would sneer and say, "Rules are rules," like some villain out of a bad TV show. So finally I lawyered up, but the lawyer told me what I already knew. Fighting them would cost more than paying them, because HOAs are legally structured to protect themselves, and unless you've got deep pockets, you're fighting a losing battle. And so there I was, staring at this fine, watching them stack more and more fees onto it every month until it ballooned into something that could have bankrupted me. And that's when I decided, if they wanted the dam gone, I'd give them exactly what they asked for, but not in the way they expected, because you see, I'd built that dam strong, but I'd also built it in such a way that taking it down was easy if you knew which keystone to remove, a single section that unlocked the whole thing. And when I pulled it out, the water that had been building up in the pond for months rushed forward with the force of a small tsunami, tearing through the creek bed, flooding downhill, and racing straight into the heart of the neighborhood that had so gleefully tried to ruin me. And I didn't have to touch a thing beyond my property line. I didn't break a single law. I just let nature take its course, and boy, did nature have a grudge to settle, because within hours, basements all across the subdivision were filling with water, lawns were swamped, and even Carol's pristine flower beds were reduced to muddy pits, and the HOA's precious community pool, the one they'd spent thousands of dollars maintaining and constantly bragged about, was overflowing with brown creek water and debris, turning it into something more like a swamp than a luxury amenity. And while I stood at the edge of my property watching all this unfold, I felt a rush of satisfaction so pure it was almost dangerous, because I had warned them. I had told them repeatedly that my dam was preventing flooding, not causing it, but they were too blinded by greed and power to listen, and now they were paying the price. But the best part was yet to come, because when the insurance adjusters came sniffing around, the HOA tried to pin everything on me. But guess what? I had documentation, photos, and even soil tests showing how my dam had stabilized the land for years, all neatly filed away thanks to my lawyer's advice. And since I hadn't touched anything beyond my property when I dismantled it, I wasn't liable. The flood was considered a natural occurrence, an act of God, which meant the HOA was left scrambling, with dozens of furious homeowners demanding answers, demanding to know why their own board had provoked the one guy who had been protecting their neighborhood without them even realizing it. And as the weeks dragged on, the HOA fell apart, meetings devolved into shouting matches, Carol resigned in disgrace after being sued personally by several neighbors, and the entire association collapsed under the weight of lawsuits and insurance claims, and me. I walked away free. No fines, no punishment, and with the satisfaction of knowing I'd stood my ground and won. But it didn't end there, because the story spread like wildfire across social media, with people from all over cheering me on, calling me the guy who sank his HOA, and I became a kind of local legend, which, I'll admit, felt good, especially every time I drove past the old neighborhood and saw the "for sale" signs littering the lawns of the people who once smirked at me during board meetings, and I thought to myself, sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or violent, it's simply letting arrogant people trip over their own stupidity, and all you have to do is give nature a little nudge, though I'll admit, in this case, the nudge was a $50,000 fine and a power-hungry woman who didn't know when to quit. But that's the thing about bullies. They always push too far, and when they do, the universe has a way of correcting them, sometimes with a flood, sometimes with fire, but always with irony. And I got to be the one who watched it all unfold from the high ground, literally and figuratively. And if you're wondering whether I rebuilt the dam after all this, the answer is yes, but I built it even stronger, even higher, and this time nobody dared say a word, because without the HOA, the neighborhood was finally free, people minded their own business, and the creek ran quietly behind my yard, held steady by the very structure that once caused all the drama, and I still smile every time I see it. A reminder that sometimes, the best way to beat the system is simply to let it destroy itself.